Hey folks, it is January 21st, and today we're going to go over chapters 108 and 109. And this has to do with the spread of the Renaissance from Italy into other parts of Northern Europe. And it has to do with some of the famous authors of that time in a really brief way. We're going to go over a couple more chapters over the Renaissance tomorrow. And just as a reminder, Thursday I intend on having a test for us. So that means we're going to review on Wednesday. But I'll tell you on Monday what the topics will be. If you want to get ahead and start studying, just study the most recent things. You got it. Yeah, we haven't had a test in a while, in a while. Yeah. And we're like literally 3 weeks into the semester. Yes, it is. Last week was kind of like a no week for us, but I mean, still got to move on. Hey, all right. So once again, our terms are Erasmus, vernacular, Machiavelli, Chaucer, and Shakespeare. As we've seen, the Renaissance is going to spread throughout Europe, and it's going to spread even faster with the invention of the printing press. And so the printing press is going to allow people to read, educated people, to read Latin and Greek, of course. But non-educated people are going to start having a desire for reading as well. And so though some people knew some Latin because it was used so much in church, and a lot of people had some education from their local churches, they wanted to read something that they could understand. And vernacular is simply the common tongue of the region you live in. So like we're in America, our vernacular is English. And of course, like in Spain, it's Spanish, France is French, in Italy, it's Italian. So this guy here, Desiderius Erasmus, he was known as being a citizen of the world. He's going to be somebody who spends a portion of his life in almost every European country. Okay. And as that, he's going to become pretty much a genius. He's going to be a polyglot. That means he's going to be very fluent in multiple languages. He's going to spend some of his time making a new translation of the Bible from the original Greek. And like your book says, there hadn't been a translation of the Bible. Hey, ladies, can y'all close the computers? We're not using those right now. Yeah. So there hasn't been a translation of the Bible into Latin, which was kind of like the common educated language since St. Jerome back in the 400s, back in the Roman Empire. So it may have needed some updates. It may have needed some polish, and Erasmus was the person to do it. He's going to be someone who is kind of like a conservative Christian defender of some of the old ways of Europe. And by that, I mean this. He's going to be familiar with the writings of Machiavelli. And so he's going to write a book called The Education of a Christian Prince, where he takes the complete and total opposite stance of Machiavelli's The Prince, where he's going to be like, no. You don't have to win at all odds. You don't have to destroy people. You can actually live a Christ-like life as a Christian prince, and through your example, your kingdom will flourish. So it's like a counter to that. And then he's going to make another counter to someone else. He's going to be a staunch Catholic. And remember, most of Europe at this time was Catholic. But during his lifetime, a contemporary of his named Martin Luther is going to make a separation from the church. And is going to found Lutheranism. And so Erasmus, however, though he makes writings against some of Luther's teachings, he doesn't call for Luther to be arrested or executed. What he actually calls for is to try to meet them in the middle, to try to, in a sense, be like, hey, look, if we're all Christians, it makes more sense for us to be in one church. And so his idea was to agree with Martin Luther that, the Catholic Church has a lot of problems and needs to be fixed. But his idea was, instead of making a new church, why don't you help us fix this one? And Luther was like, nope, y'all don't want to do all the things that I think need to be fixed. So there was a separation, especially in Germany, and then we move on from there to other denominations. And so here's his original. You see, it has a Greek title for the Bible that he is going to translate. Here's Education of a Christian Prince. I kind of halfway thought maybe we would read this later, but I'm not sure. It's a small book, kind of like the Prince, but I'm thinking we might do something else instead. I don't know, because what this would be is it would be a good study of like two opposing ideas. So you have Machiavelli's view on what politics should be like. Forget morality. We're going to meet our goal. And then you got Erasmus's idea. It's like, well, morality is everything. Goals aren't that important if you're going to sell your soul. So, I don't know. Maybe. Speaking of, here's Machiavelli. Poor guy. So, Machiavelli is going to be around in Florence, Italy. And they're going to have a lot of political unrest. So, there's a family in Florence called the Medici. The Medici were extremely rich bankers. They were so rich that they loaned out money to most of the kingdoms in Europe. They even managed to buy their way into the papacy, to buy a family member to become a pope. Florence got really tired of the corruption of this family and wanted more political freedom, because the Medici were essentially a shadow government. They were rich people who ruled the country from like behind the scenes. So Machiavelli's going to help found this republic, and they're going to have, essentially like rights for the citizens, the ability to vote for representatives, stuff like that. But eventually the Medicis are going to take back over, and he's going to be in exile. He's going to become very bitter as an exile. And that's what's going to help lead him to write The Prince, where he's like, you know what? Things didn't work out when we tried to play nice. Maybe playing nice doesn't work. So here's Cervantes. He's going to be the author of Don Quixote. And Don Quixote is kind of like a satire of chivalry, where you have the idea of this doddering old knight going around trying to live up to the idea of almost like a Shakespearean knight. But really the whole time he's kind of buffoonish. And it's kind of like poking fun at this idea that was really popular at the time of chivalry. Because the ideas of chivalry might have a lot to do with morality, but a lot of critics at the time said that it wound up getting a lot of young men killed in duels. It helped cause needless wars, waste of wealth, and stuff like that. Here's Chaucer. So Chaucer is very well known. He kind of goes by two titles. He's known as being the father of English literature and the father of modern English poetry. He's going to spend a lot of his time as a cleric, but he's also an astrologer. He's a scholar and a man of letters. He's going to be deeply religious, but at the same time, he shows kind of like the earthly humor of people in England. And that's one thing that's going to separate England from a lot of Europe, is that England is a lot of the time culturally, though they've been Christian, they were also very not very practicing, as I think is a way to put it, which is going to be one of the reasons why a century later you're going to have the Pilgrims, because they're going to be people who are deeply religious, and they're going to be really put off by how their fellow Englishmen, instead of going to church on Sundays, spent their Sundays gambling and drinking and stuff like that. And so you're going to start seeing a separation. But most English people were more down the middle. Shakespeare, of course, he was around during the time of Queen Elizabeth, and it's known as having the height of Elizabethan English, which is also expressed later on in the King James Bible. He's known around the world as a super famous playwright, but the thing is him as a person is largely a mystery. Some people say that his plays were written by multiple people. Some people say that his name isn't even really his name. It was a mythical name. You might there's a lot of mystery on who Shakespeare was. There's been many plays that have come up throughout history where people were like, hey, this is Shakespeare's lost play. And actually they're forgeries made by like people trying to pretend they're him so they could sell the document for a fortune. You had your hand up?
Which one is
The young Elizabeth I. Like the redhead, super pale, like dipping tobacco, all that.
Yeah, there's just like 85 of them.
Elizabeth? Well, I'm trying to think. Like there's a lot of Marys, but yeah, this is Elizabeth I. This is Elizabeth I. And she would even watch his plays from the Globe Theater. But at the time, it's like there's just a lot of different things. Like, however, though she went to the plays, they said there was a lot of fear because Elizabeth was pretty smart. She had a lot of censors on what you would call the media. So if you wrote a newspaper, a book, or a play that she didn't like, she could have you thrown in prison. She learned that lesson from her sister, Queen Mary, because her sister, Queen Mary, didn't censor the media, and so popular support went against her, and she had a miserable life because of it. Elizabeth's like, I'm not making that mistake. Everybody's going to know what I want them to know. So, and that's for later. That's what I talk about. That's Copernicus. All right, kids. So, got these terms up here. I need your help. Like fill in the data. So, who is Erasmus again?
A human being.
Hey, Bubba.
He was a native of Rotterdam.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't just native of that. He was like, he was essentially, remember, he was citizen of the world.
And he published the New Testament.
Yeah, he made a new, more accurate translation too. Let's see, and see, and that's something even biblical scholars do today across denominations, is that a lot of times when they go back and they want to study scriptures and really get down to the deep meaning of it, a lot of the times they want to know how to read Latin, Greek, Aramaic, Hebrew. They want to go back and they want to understand the words like at their original meaning as close as possible. And this happened in the Renaissance, Like people still do it today. My brother dated a girl, and her father, that's what he did. He was a pastor, and he knew Greek, Latin, and Hebrew, and he would just spend his afternoons going back and retranslating the original text. Hey, anything else about Erasmus?
Can't really find anything.
Did you translate it in like Latin? And like there's a different Bible, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and you might find that like a lot of it was still the same, and you'll find that if you find like different versions of the Bible. Like there's a lot of different versions of the Bible out today. A lot.
New King James.
You got international. Huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah, new translation. Yeah.
Do you read the Bible?
Yeah, like
What
when I
version
have
do
time.
you prefer?
Okay, so I read a Catholic Bible and I read a St. John version. So, and even Catholics got
I
multiple.
know in like Baptist Christianity, they mainly read the New King James.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I grew up Baptist, and yeah, we mostly had King James, and like I didn't understand half of it because I didn't like get the these and the thous. I was like, what? What's that? So, all right, sir. Moving right along. Vernacular. What's vernacular mean? It's the.
Dialect, I guess.
It can be dialect. It can be, but dialect is like within a language. So like American. Gosh, does English even have dialects? Like we got accents, but a dialect is like when a language changes so much it's hard to understand each other. Like you might say Creole, right? Like somebody who speaks like Louisiana Creole, like, just like, what? You speak English? All right, so yeah, vernacular is the it's just common language, right?
I guess we've got like British English.
Yeah, and those would be accents because we can understand people from other parts of the Commonwealth, the British Commonwealth, like Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and all that. Whereas there might be some languages, like they say Norwegian, it's more than accents. You can have people in Norway live in the same city, and they can't understand each other, even though they're all speaking Norwegian because the dialects get so weird. But that language is supposed to be really complicated, really complicated. All right, Machiavelli. So what was Machiavelli?
Author of The Prince,
Yeah,
founded the modern science of politics.
yeah. Prince. Yeah. And modern politics. Yeah, so both the idea of what they call the realpolitik. It's like you take politics for what it really is, not what it should be. But it's also known for being very bloodthirsty, very sinister, right? It's where we get the term Machiavellian. In fact, there's a psychological term for somebody who has Machiavellianism. It's somebody who's just willing to use people all the time and not care what happens to them. Not like in a murderous way, but like in like a way where it's like, whatever, you're just somebody I'm going to use and throw away. Now on to the next person, you know? Yeah. Yeah, kind of like a narcissist is somebody who's like so into themselves and they can only think about themselves and they can't empathize with others. And when they talk with other people, they only think that those other people are always thinking about you. I was like all right, Chaucer. So you have already Chaucer. So it was a
Author of the Canterbury Tales. England little loves him.
oh yeah. Let me spell it. Canterbury Tales. Yeah, so he's going to like really popularize English literature. Lit. It was English lit. All right. Shakespeare. All right, Shakespeare. So what did Shakespeare do? He wrote some stuff, right?
He made some fancy plays.
Yeah. Famous English playwright. I forgot the name of the Spanish version of Shakespeare, who was super, super popular in Spain. I forgot his name, but he was actually around during the same time. But a lot of his stuff didn't get translated into English, so we never really caught on that big with English speakers. Famous English playwright. I think playwright has a W in it. I'm probably wrong. It doesn't have a W in it?
It does.
It does have a W. Oh, no, I'll put red ink on there. Yeah, right. Yeah. So, famous English playwright. Gosh, what am I going to say? Like Shakespeare did so much. He made historical plays. He made plays based on common superstitions. He made plays based on. You can tell a lot of his plays were actually based on Italian literature, kind of like Chaucer. They both really followed the Italians on a lot of the stuff they kind of put out. It just covered a lot of things. Had a lot of human troubles and questions. Like you might not like Shakespearean English, but I'm sure like when you get down to the story, you'll find a Shakespeare story almost everybody likes. Okay. Okay, I guess we're just gonna kind of end it with that. So folks, we're gonna come back. I think we're gonna skip chapter 110 and just do the next two after that. We shall see. But see you tomorrow.